Is networking important?
Networking is absolutely important. The amount of times where I've had a classroom full of people where I've given one of these talks to, some of those people in that class have then gone on to become my biggest employers. So being nice to everyone, having a giant network is really important. There was a time where I didn't have as much work as I did now. And that was because when I went into my phone and looked up all of my contacts, I had about maybe 10 or 20 contacts. Now I've got 50. And now the hardest part about my job is getting a day off. So networking is absolutely crucial if you want work. You've got to be nice to everyone. And it goes beyond just shaking someone's hand, giving them a business card. If you can, add them on Facebook, get to know the person, because it's way more likely that you're going to get hired by someone who likes you than it is by someone who just knows your name.
Tell us about discovering someone who's good at networking if you're not.
So my number one tip for networking is if you're no good at networking, if you're no good at getting to know people, just make friends with one person who is, and your name will automatically get thrown around a lot.
Can you give us an idea of how many states you're licensed in and why?
Well, I'm licensed in Queensland and New South Wales. I live quite close to the border of Queensland and New South Wales. If I was to start a job at Coolangatta Airport, if they were to drive 5 minutes south or 5 minutes north, that's in two completely different states. And let's say I started at Coolangatta Airport, I was only licensed in Queensland, and then they drove slightly south, I would have to stop that job and it would be over. Also, I conduct a lot of work in northern New South Wales, and I'm able to put that in my resume, and it really raises a lot more eyebrows than it would have otherwise. I get a lot of my work currently from New South Wales.
Are there any advantages in being a member of an industry association?
I would say so, yeah. It comes down to networking. It comes down to meeting the right people. If you can shake hands and get to know some of the bigger companies out there, it's definitely a good thing. Not only other companies, but other investigators, because you can often get a lot of other people's overflow, and that's where a lot of my work comes from too. And that's where a lot of other people who I know, their work comes from overflow that I'm getting, that I have no time to do, and I'll pass it on to the next best person.
If you had to give 3 tips to a beginner in regards to surveillance, what would they be?
Probably my number one tip would be embrace technology. Okay, if a new piece of technology comes out, don't ignore it. You'll fall behind and you won't be able to put that on your resume, and you won't be able to keep up with as much work. Number 2 would probably be networking. Get to know as many people as you can. Get a target in your head of how many contacts you want in your phone. Okay, and make it higher than what you think it should be. Don't make it 10, make it 50. My number 3 tip would probably be to do with keeping contemporaneous notes. And that doesn't mean sitting in your car and ignoring what's going on in front of your windscreen and handwriting out notes. I haven't made a handwritten note in a long time. Generally, all my notes are voice notes. They're accurate. I get to keep my hands on the steering wheel. I get to keep my eyes on the subject. And then I'll also speak in the exact same fashion that I would as if I was making the notes. So by the time I get to my laptop, I don't have to decode anything. I just write down what I said.
You mentioned earlier about embracing technology. Do you use drones, and how do you use them?
Yes, I do use drones. Drones are fairly new, and they have some negative connotations to them, because when most people hear drones, they're thinking military drones, or they're thinking these drones are, going to bomb someone, or they're just purely used for this or that. My use of drones personally is more to do with, if a client calls me and says, do you think that person's home? I can then go 500 meters back away from the house, I can go 100 meters up, then I can see whether or not there's a car there, a person there, a cat or a dog there. I'll be able to land that drone really quickly and then just say, hey, yes, I think they're home, or no, I think they're not. The drones are not for putting up in the air at 10 meters and following someone around. They're not for breaking any laws, okay? CASA, the Civil Aviation and Safety Authority, outline all the standard operating conditions that you need to follow, and that's certainly what I do follow. And if you want to use drones commercially, you will need your remote pilot's license, your REPL, which I do have. But for the most part, they're a very useful tool. They're a tool that most people right now are rejecting. They're saying, no, this is no good. But they were saying the same thing about digital cameras. They were saying the same thing about hidden cameras. They were saying the same thing about digital notes at one time. They were saying the same thing about Facebook, Instagram, Google Earth, all that sort of thing. So embrace the new technology, get ahead of the other people, and you'll be good.
Is it important on a long surveillance job to do stretching or some kind of exercise because you've been sitting for a long time?
Yeah, you're going to find yourself sitting down in your car, sometimes for 16-hour stretches. You want to be able to get up every hour or so and just stand up, have a little stretch, maybe a short walk, as long as you're not risking being caught or anything like that. But I know a fair few investigators who've got some lower back problems or even heart problems from just the static sitting around too much. You'll understand, if you're driving to a job, doing 16 hours work and driving home, you are not then going home and getting on a treadmill, you're going to bed. So what I would suggest people do is try to get as much circulation as possible in their job. That's part of safety as well, a big part.
Thank you.